Revenge Office Stories. The moment my VP handed me my termination papers, he smirked. "Don't take it personally," he said. He really thought he'd won. In his mind, I was just another number on a spreadsheet, a problem he'd solved just in time for his quarterly review. What he didn't get was that his signature on that severance agreement wasn't the end of my story. It was the fuse he'd just lit on his own career. He handed me the keys to his downfall, all wrapped up in a single, overlooked clause. He underestimated the paperwork, and in the world of corporate chess, that's a fatal mistake. My name isn't important. What I did is, for 15 years, I was the senior director of project integration at a tech firm we'll call Innovate Dynamics. I wasn't just an employee, I was part of the foundation. I was employee number 17. I was hired back when our office was a chaotic loft over a laundromat, and our biggest perk was a shared espresso machine. I was there for the first big client, the IPO, and I steered our most critical projects through 2 recessions that would have sunk smaller companies. My job was to be the adult in the room. When our brilliant, chaotic engineers came up with a new dream, I built the bridge to reality. I wrote the budgets, the timelines, and the risk strategies. I made sure the trains ran on time every single time. My performance reviews were glowing, indispensable, flawless execution, the gold standard. I wasn't just good at my job, I built the systems the company ran on. Then came Marcus. Marcus Vance was our shiny new VP of operations, poached from a rival with a fat signing bonus and a mission to shake things up. He was the kind of guy who used buzzwords like a shield. He talked synergy while creating division and streamlining while causing chaos. He was tall, perfectly dressed, with a smile that never quite reached his eyes. From our very first meeting, I knew I was in his way. I was the old guard. I had the institutional knowledge he didn't, and I had the respect of the teams he wanted to dominate. I don't play political games. When he proposed a new logistics framework I knew would be a disaster, I didn't just nod and smile. I handed him a 15-page report with data models showing exactly why it was a terrible idea. I wasn't being difficult, I was doing my job. But to a guy like Marcus, someone else's competence feels like an insult. He saw my expertise not as an asset, but as a direct challenge to his authority. His little campaign started quietly. I'd be left off meeting invites for projects I was managing. Members of my team would be yanked for special assignments, wrecking my timelines. He'd publicly question my budget projections in leadership meetings, using bad data he got from his own hand-picked analysts. It was death by 1,000 cuts, all designed to make me look obsolete. I saw it all happening. I documented everything, every email, every shady directive, every time he interfered. I'd been in the corporate world for 2 decades. I wasn't naive. But I held back, maybe foolishly thinking that my work and my long history with the company would protect me. I thought the CEO, a man I'd known for 15 years, would see through this transparent power grab. That was my mistake. I underestimated the appeal of a charismatic snake. The end came on a Tuesday. I was called into a conference room with Marcus and a nervous-looking woman from HR. It was the classic, sterile scene of a corporate execution. Marcus, dripping with fake sincerity, said, "We're undergoing a strategic realignment to optimize our operational efficiency. As part of that, we've made the difficult decision to eliminate your position." Eliminate my position, the position I created from nothing. I just looked him dead in the eye, my face a calm mask. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of a scene. Inside, a cold fury was hardening into steel, but on the outside I was ice. He pushed a folder across the table. "This is your severance agreement," he said. "A very generous package. Just sign it, and we can all move on." He then added, with a little twist of the knife, "Head count is a privilege. Your contribution is no longer relevant." He mistook my silence for defeat. As I picked up that folder, I saw the flicker of victory in his eyes. He thought he'd just cleared his biggest obstacle. He was so arrogant, so focused on the short-term win that he didn't do his homework. He had his new HR director use a standard severance template, a one-size-fits-all document they probably gave to junior hires. He just wanted me gone. And that haste, that towering ego, was the first crack in his foundation. He didn't read the fine print. More importantly, he'd never read my original employment contract from 15 years ago. But I had. And that night, I went home and pulled it out. What Marcus couldn't possibly have known was that my original contract was a relic from a wilder time. Back then, Innovate Dynamics was a high-risk startup. To lure talent, our founder had to make big promises. My lawyer at the time, a shrewd old cynic named David, insisted on getting those promises in writing. A handshake only lasts as long as everyone's memory, he told me. We need something that survives. He'd insisted on a very strange and dramatic clause he called the post-mortem integrity clause. It felt a little paranoid at the time, but I agreed. It stated that if I were ever terminated without cause, I had the right to compel a full, independent, third-party forensic audit of all projects under my management for the last 3 years. Its purpose was to protect my professional reputation, to prove my work was solid and that if something went wrong, it wasn't on me. In 15 years, I had never thought about it. It was a fossil. Here's the devastatingly beautiful part. The boilerplate severance agreement Marcus so smugly pushed at me had one little sentence, a throwaway line from legal that no one ever looks at. This agreement is supplemental to all previously signed employment contracts, and all terms and conditions of said contracts remain in effect unless explicitly contradicted herein. They hadn't contradicted it. In their rush to get me out the door, they had accidentally rearmed a weapon they didn't know existed. Marcus had just handed me written permission to light the fuse. The next morning, I didn't call a lawyer to sue for wrongful termination. That's messy in public. I wanted to be a ghost. Instead, I drafted a single, polite, and formal letter to Arthur, the chairman of the board. Dear Mr. Chairman, it began pursuant to my employment contract dated October 23rd, 2010, and reaffirmed by my severance agreement. I am formally invoking my right to compel a full, independent, third-party forensic audit of my former projects. I trust the board will engage one of its approved auditing partners to commence this process. I sent it via certified mail, with a copy to the company's general counsel. I didn't send one to Marcus. This was happening way above his pay grade. The silence that followed was the most suspenseful week of my life. I can only imagine the panicked calls ricocheting through the C-suite. I can picture the general counsel digging my ancient file out of the archives, his blood running cold as he read that clause. They were trapped. To refuse the audit would be a breach of contract, but to allow it, well, that was a whole other level of risk. They had no choice. Now, you might be asking, what was I hoping they'd find? Was this just an expensive bluff? Not at all. This was about justice for what Marcus had been doing to the company I helped build. For the past year, I'd watched him run his operations like a personal piggy bank. He had a roster of preferred vendors he'd brought with him, all of them more expensive and less reliable than our established partners. He'd override my team's recommendations, citing strategic partnerships. Project budgets I'd planned meticulously would suddenly inflate with vague invoices for consulting fees or expedited shipping, all approved directly by his office, bypassing my team's oversight. When I raised red flags, I was told to focus on the big picture. He was creating a shadow financial system, and I was sure he was getting kickbacks. But suspicion isn't proof. A forensic audit, however, is a different beast. These people are bloodhounds for dollars. They follow every single transaction, from appropriation to destination. They look for anomalies. And I knew Marcus's entire operation was one giant anomaly. I had spent my last 6 months creating a perfect roadmap for them. Every time he forced a vendor on me, I documented it. Every time a budget was overrun, I detailed the discrepancy. I had a digital breadcrumb trail saved on an encrypted hard drive, a treasure map with a giant red X marking the spot. A team of grim-faced auditors set up shop on the third floor. Marcus, I heard, was trying to play it cool, telling everyone it was a routine review. But then the tremors started. The auditors began interviews. An old colleague from accounts payable called me one night, whispering. "They're asking about the invoices from Titan Logistics," she said. "They want to know why we were paying 3 times the market rate. They're asking who owns it." I smiled. I already knew. After a weekend of digging through public records, I'd found that Titan Logistics was a shell corporation owned through a chain of other companies by Marcus's brother. That was the linchpin. The house of cards started to wobble. Marcus's confident strut vanished. He was seen having hushed, angry phone calls in the parking garage. He tried to limit the auditor's access, but the board's lawyers, terrified of the legal exposure, told him to stand down. He had built his own cage. I had just locked the door. For 2 months I waited. Then, one morning, an email from Arthur, the chairman. The subject, report. The body, the audit is complete. There will be a special session of the board tomorrow at 9 a.m. Your presence is requested. When I walked into the 40th floor boardroom, the air was thick and heavy. Marcus was at the far end of the table. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a month. He wouldn't look at me. I took the seat left for me, directly opposite him. In the middle of the table was a bound report about 5 inches thick. The audit. Arthur, the chairman, cleared his throat. "We have reviewed the findings," he said, his voice heavy. "To say we are disturbed would be a profound understatement." He looked right at Marcus. "The report details a systemic pattern of financial misconduct, bid rigging, and self-dealing orchestrated by you, Mr. Vance. The auditors have identified over $90 million in fraudulent or grossly inflated contracts awarded to shell companies owned by your family." A collective gasp went around the room. 90 million. Even I was stunned by the number. Arthur wasn't done. He coldly detailed the kickback scheme with Marcus's brother, the $5 million consulting fee paid to a company traced back to Marcus's wife, and the systematic dismantling of internal controls. With every word, Marcus seemed to shrink. "Marcus," Arthur said into the silence, "do you have anything to say?" Marcus just stared, mouth open, no sound coming out. He looked like he still couldn't process how a fired, irrelevant employee had brought his entire empire down. "In that case," Arthur continued, "your employment is terminated, effective immediately. Your stock options are voided. The company will be commencing legal action to recover the $90 million, and we have filed an injunction to freeze your personal assets." It was a corporate execution, swift, total, and irreversible. As 2 security guards entered and stood behind him, Marcus finally looked at me. His eyes burned with pathetic hatred. I gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod, the same one I'd given him when he fired me. Checkmate. The fallout was spectacular. The company had to report the mess to the SEC, the stock tanked, and shareholder lawsuits piled up. The next day, Arthur called me, his tone now humbled, almost pleading. He asked me to come back, not as an employee, but as a highly paid independent consultant to lead the cleanup. The irony was rich. They fired me thinking I was irrelevant, and now they were begging me to come back because I was the only one who could fix it. I accepted on my own terms. My first act was to rehire 2 of the key people Marcus had fired for asking too many questions. Over the next 6 months, we rebuilt the division. As for Marcus, his downfall was absolute. The SEC charged him with securities fraud. The Department of Justice followed with an indictment for wire fraud and money laundering. He lost everything, his house, career, and freedom, all because he smirked at the wrong person and didn't bother to read the paperwork. I don't take joy in his destruction, but I do feel a profound sense of satisfaction. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. He played checkers, trying to take my king. I was playing chess, and I had him in checkmate from the second, he said. Don't take it personally. In the corporate world, knowledge isn't just power, it can be a weapon. And the most dangerous person in the room is often the one everyone underestimates. They thought they were signing my termination papers. What they really signed was his confession,